Hello there! This video explains how to test the head gasket on a Nissan Primera P12. And guess what? It's easy. Why? Because if it leaks, there are symptoms you can easily see and symptoms you can easily feel. Furthermore, for very little money you can get a head gasket tester like this and I'll show you how to use it. All I ask in return is that you send me £10 million by PayPal. I'll wait for it to come through. Hey, thank you very much. Welcome to Cast by TV. Right, let's take a moment to recap the basics so we can interpret any symptoms we see on the car. The head gasket is the seal between the engine block and the cylinder head. Among other things, it separates the combustible mixture of fuel and air, the coolant and the oil. So, if it leaks, these substances mix. That is a key point to note. Furthermore, the head gasket seals the engine shut so it can create the high internal pressure required to generate power. So, if the gasket leaks, there's less internal pressure and therefore less power. Right, enough theory. Let's test the head gasket on my Nissan Primera P12, which I can now afford to maintain thanks to that £10 million you sent me. To get started, open the bonnet and find the oil cap. It's here towards the top of the engine. Now, remove the cap and inspect the oil on its underside. On my car, the oil is a normal, healthy colour, so that's fine. However, if on your car the oil is creamy and therefore more reminiscent of mayonnaise, water has mixed with the oil. Here's an example from someone else's vehicle. Engine coolant contains a high percentage of water and, as we said earlier, if the head gasket leaks, it might let the coolant mix with the oil. Furthermore, let's look for contaminated, mayonnaise-like oil on the pipe beneath the oil cap on my car. This looks fine, there's no mayonnaise. In contrast, here's a picture of one that's contaminated. Let's check the oil on the dipstick too. Again, on my vehicle it's a normal, healthy colour, so there's no sign of mayonnaise. However, here's a picture of one that's more problematic. Next, start the car, let it warm up for a few minutes, then rev the engine and note any smoke that emerges from the exhaust. If there's a lot of blue smoke, oil is leaking into the cylinders and, therefore, burning alongside the typical mixture of fuel and air. There's no blue in my exhaust smoke, so that's fine, but here's an example of what to look for. Furthermore, look for any excessive white smoke emerging from the exhaust. If it's there, coolant might be leaking into the cylinders and burning alongside the typical mixture of fuel and air. Again, my car looks fine, but here's a picture of what to look for. Next, take the car for a drive and consider how the engine responds. If it's low on power, the head gasket might be leaking. Remember what we said earlier to understand why. The engine has to create a lot of internal pressure to produce power, and it can't produce enough pressure if it isn't tightly sealed by the gasket. Keep an eye on the temperature gauge too. Overheating is a sign of head gasket failure. Why? Well, because, as we mentioned, the coolant that stops it overheating might leak into the cylinders, burn and emerge from the exhaust as white smoke. How infuriating. Let's now have a look at this head gasket tester kit. It includes this transparent plastic tube, this rubber bung connected to the bottom of the tube, this carbon dioxide reaction fluid, and this pipette. If the head gasket leaks, carbon dioxide from the combustion process might escape into the coolant. This kit detects carbon dioxide in engine coolant. Come on then, let's have a go. To get started, make sure the engine is cold so there's very little pressure in the cooling system. Why? Because you have to remove either the cap on the cooling system's expansion tank, which is here, or the cap on the radiator, which is here. If the engine's hot, there's a lot of pressure in the cooling system and the coolant inside it gets very hot too. So, if you remove your cap, coolant might, under some circumstances, shoot out at high speed and burn you. On my Nissan Primera P12, let's remove the cap on the expansion tank rather than the radiator. Now insert the head gasket tester tube. Next, put in 2 mm of carbon dioxide reaction fluid through this hole. The level should be about here. Note too that at the start of the test the fluid is blue. Now start the engine and give it a few revs. You want to get it warm and increase the pressure in the cooling system. Next, let the engine run for about 5 minutes and every now and then rev it. Okay, 5 minutes has passed, so let's have a look at the reaction fluid. It's still blue, so that suggests the head gasket is fine. In contrast, if the fluid in your car goes yellow or green, there's a leak and carbon dioxide for the combustion process is escaping into your coolant. Okay, we have a few final points to consider before I book a luxury cruise with that £10 million you sent me. Whereas every symptom we've listed in this video can be caused by head gasket failure, they can be caused by other issues too. For example, water can get into the oil and therefore make it look more like mayonnaise via condensation. Also, blue smoke from the exhaust can be caused by worn valve seals. Even this head gasket tester isn't foolproof. Why? Because although it's less likely, carbon dioxide might get into the coolant via a crack in the engine block rather than a leaky gasket. So, the key is to take an overview. If your car has several of the symptoms we've discussed, you might, on balance, be more inclined to think it has a leaky head gasket than any other issue. And that's it. That's how to test the head gasket on a Nissan Primera P12. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more content, ask any questions in the comments section, and do me a favour and click like on this video. You might also like to check out the Nissan Primera Owners Club, which you can find at www.npoc.co.uk. Oh, and I've written a book that might help you out. It's called How to Buy the Right Used Car, and it walks you through the entire process in simple, easy to follow steps. It's available at Amazon, and there's a link in the description of this video that takes you straight to it. Right, that's all for now. Where shall I go on this luxury cruise? Ooh, this place looks nice.